Our third and final day here at the beautiful Arizona Biltmore for the NFL annual meeting. Here to break it down, I'm Phil Milani alongside Aric, DiLalla. Sad to say goodbye here, but it seems like it had been a very good meeting for everybody for the league here down in Arizona. Aric, we heard from Broncos owner and CEO Greg Penner. A couple of things that we want to touch on from what we heard, including what he thought are expectations for the Broncos this season.
Yeah, obviously Phil last year did not go the way that people wanted. And so Greg Penner was asked, what are reasonable expectations for 2023? What do you hope to see? He didn't put a win total on it, which I thought was interesting because what he said will determine success is the process correct? Are we doing things the right way? Is our organization functioning and kind of moving in the direction that we want? That's what's going to determine if it's a successful season or not. And with Sean Payton in as head coach now for a couple of months for the Broncos, Greg Penner has already started to see that take place. He likes what Sean Payton has done in the building, believes in that process. And I think is confident that at the end of the year, you're going to look up and feel a lot better about the direction the Broncos are heading just because of those processes that they put in place.
Yeah, and it seems like he's in lockstep here with what Coach Sean Payton has said is like, let's not put crazy expectations on things. This is a process. It's time to get to work. That's sort of been the messaging from everybody within the building. Aric, the Broncos did go out and spend a lot in free agency. They bolstered the offensive line. They got an interior pressure guy in Zach Allen. They went out and made quite a few moves, and Mr. Penner was asked about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two things that you have to like about Greg Penner and this ownership group, or just two of them, is one, you have the patience, right, and the foresight to say, what is this process going to be like? What is a season going to look like? Let's not, put the cart before the horse there. So that's good patience. That's a good skill that they have. But then you also have the ability to act when needed. And obviously the Broncos knew that with a lack of draft capital, they were going to need to spend a little bit more in free agency. Greg Penner was pleased with how this free agency process went, working with George Payton and Sean Payton, acquiring the guys that they targeted. But it's also clear we talk about short-term vision, long-term strategic goals. He said this isn't going to be an every-year thing necessarily. You do want to ideally develop players through the draft, build up your team that way. So again, I like the fact that you've got this long-term vision, but the ability to work in the short term as well.
Yeah, and I mean, he's providing all the resources that are necessary to win. Aric, the last thing about Mike Shanahan, he said that the former Bronco head coach played a big role in the coaching search. He was an advisor there, and we think that it's pretty clear that Mike Shanahan should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Phil. I mean, one, that was an interesting nugget that during the coaching process, Mike Shanahan talked with Greg Penner about the search, gave some advice. Obviously, who better to ask, right, than the winningest coach in team history, back-to-back Super Bowl titles. Yeah, it's clear whether you talk to Greg Penner, people here at the league meetings, national media members, Hall of Fame voters, that Mike Shanahan has a Hall of Fame-worthy resume, and that it's a matter of when, not if, for him. Obviously, we're hopeful that he gets into the Hall of Fame this year when they choose a coach candidate here later this summer. But yeah, Greg Penner, it's clear how much he understands what Mike Shanahan means to this organization, what he helped this organization accomplish, and that it is time for him to go to Canton.
Tradition and alumni are very important to this ownership group.
Yes.
And so for him to say what he did about Mike Shanahan, I think that made a lot of sense. And that would be good for the organization to see him enshrined in Canton. Aric, earlier in the day, we heard from Broncos president Damani Leech, talked about quite a few things, including the market research that the Broncos have done here as they take the next step in hearing what fans want in a stadium. And he mentioned that they went out and they did some tours too to see some of the more modern stadiums in the NFL.
A lot of information gathering here from the Broncos, and it's kind of being done in a variety of ways, right? I mean, Damani Leech mentioned that he and the Walton Penner family ownership group, they went out and did a tour of stadiums, I believe 6 NFL stadiums, Tottenham and Wembley over in London, saw Climate Pledge Arena there in Seattle. So, no lack of due diligence here. There's no perfect stadium, right? Damani mentioned that. Greg Penner mentioned that later, that there's no stadium that checks every box. It's got to be unique to Denver if they choose to go that direction. But it is interesting in my eyes that, they're gathering this information. They've done focus groups. A survey was sent out recently that obviously the Broncos they're still kind of getting those results, but it's important to them to hear from fans. And the line that stood out to me, Phil, was Damani Leech saying, we don't want to operate in this echo chamber where we're only talking about things internally. And I think that's how you end up with blind spots, right, in your decision making when you don't have a variety of perspectives. And so the Broncos have gone out of their way to make sure that's not going to happen. And Phil, to be clear, no decisions have been made. This is still very early on in the process of determining the future of Empower Field at Mile High, but they're doing their homework.
Yeah, I mean, it's for the fans, right? I
Yep.
mean, this whole thing, the stadium experience, everything that is for the fans. So, yeah, let's get some information from the fans, see what they think is important, and then that'll be valuable in the decision-making process moving forward. So that makes a lot of sense. Damani Leech also did mention that the budget and the timeline for the renovations that are being made at Empower Field a Mile High are on time. I know you were really nervous when they were removing Bucky. You're like, just let's take it easy, right?
He's being protected very carefully, I think.
Yes,
Sounds like he's safe.
I do believe that that's the case. Just the last thing here for you, Aric. Where's your tie? I mean, this
Phil,
is an important day
Phil,
here.
I'm trying to go resort casual.
Got it.
Just trying to fit in with everybody around
The
here.
vibe.
But you like to show me up.
Yeah,
I get
it's
it.
a vibe. It's a vibe. Yeah, you're more in line here. So I think I'm a little overdressed, maybe. We'll see. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Sadly, we have to say goodbye. An enjoyable NFL annual meeting here. But for one last time, for Aric DiLalla, I am Phil Milani.